Welcome to the 10th episode of the Who, What, When, Where, and the Why podcast. My name is Kathleen Johnson, and I'm the Membership and Marketing Director at the Why and your host. And with me today is Jason Stevens, the lead pastor of the church at Carter's Orchard. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hey, Kathleen.
Super excited to have you today. We just kind of went through a little funny story about how I said you were our first guest, but you really aren't because we had a little preschooler here that took your place. And
got edged out by a 4-year-old.
Yes, you did.
It's not hurtful at all.
And so just so our audience knows, Pastor Jason leads the church.
By the way, did she do well?
She was great.
Okay.
She was great. She sang some songs, and she had like little sensory objects that we could play with while we were here. So you didn't bring anything.
When we record our podcast,
do you have sensory stuff?
I hold a baseball because I'm ADHD and I just do better with something in my hands, and I didn't even think to grab it.
Did you want me to ask Josh if he has something?
I have nothing to hold in my hands for sensory, and I don't have any songs.
Do you want my phone?
So
like every other parent, here you go, little brother.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
So Pastor Jason and I know each other. I am a member of his church, and my daughter is on his staff team as well. And so we have a little bit of history. So if there's a little funny stuff going on, you'll know why.
And she's not just on my staff. She is my assistant and makes my life work, is the true story. So yes, she keeps me out of trouble. Awesome. Multiple times daily, yes.
She got you here on time today, is that what you're trying to tell me?
It's pretty much that deal.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I asked you to be part of this, and the title of this podcast is We Need Each Other. And it's how to step outside of the pandemic isolation and back into a life of community. Yeah. Because I really feel like isolation has put a real weight on people, and it's hard for them to get back out. And so no doubt the last year has had some crazy impact on individuals in our own community and just throughout our nation and throughout the world. Yeah. And so we thought it was an important conversation to have. And I know that when the pandemic first started and they closed us down, I was like, yay, vacation.
Now, I haven't heard about the pandemic. Could you explain what this is to me? I'm a little lost.
Living under a rock.
Yes. No, I know. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So, that was a year ago in March when they closed the Y. They closed our doors.
Right.
And for the first, week, I was like, oh, okay, I can work from home. This is awesome.
For the first
week of closure.
Yeah, few weeks, it was like amazing.
Yes.
Because it was like a little bit apocalyptic. Yeah. And it was like, what is happening? There was a little bit of energy, but then it just got.
Yeah, it went.
Then it turned real no fun.
No fun. Yeah. No fun at all. Especially if you were in the Zoom world and just, I don't know, just having to use your phone a lot.
Oh, no, I didn't. I never struggled with that.
You do love your phone, but I really don't. Yeah. And so it's not.
So we were forced to, these different ways to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know even through family, even my personal ability to be able to see my mom. Who was in an assisted living.
I remember.
When they locked that down. And so all these kind of strange things just became this isolation.
And just tactile stuff, like just hugs.
Yes. And not even knowing whether you could hug your daughter when you saw her.
Sure.
Now it's just awkward.
Yeah.
So it just became awkward.
No, for sure.
So I wanted to kind of just ask you, how did you accept the changes at first? And did isolation start to become a problem for you as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I do change really well. I embrace change. I don't mind it at all. I float through days. My appointments tie my randomness together. So I'm not a person. I have habits as anybody does, but I don't mind course change. So that part was not a big deal for me. However, the thing that you're asking was it actually took place over a course of time for me personally. But then what I have noticed, so as we went through further in spring last year and then going into summer, I could feel a purpose loss. Where I, particularly so just on the pastor side of it, We weren't allowed to be in hospitals.
Right.
We weren't. Okay. So I go and try to be, I always say that I'm at every, delivery, a baby delivery. And then I have to qualify that with like, really right after, but I love it. That's a joy of my life it's a weird joy of my life to just go and hold newborns,
whatever size they are. I always like your description. Right. They came in about this size. They were about so much pounds.
Yeah. Everybody wants to give measurements, and it's like they're baby size. What does they're not 3 feet long and 400 pounds. It's like they're the size of a baby, of a normal human baby. So, and then what's funny about that is if it's like, the difference between like a really big baby is 9 pounds and a really small baby is 7 pounds. So it's like, well, I mean, they're all going to end up about the same size, So anyway, but I love that. And we couldn't do that. So and then it was even like when things that we would do naturally, like take people food, it was like, couldn't do that. Cause again, it's like the thing you're saying, it was like, what is everybody okay with?
Right.
So it's just navigating all that stuff. And then counseling really dropped because again, everything was, and traffic stopped. So it wasn't, and teaching was very, like we did a lot of video teaching, but even that was just very condensed,
right? Very
strange. I love the conversation.
Right. You like feedback.
I love feedback. And so it was just death. Like part of my joy is the faces and like physical feedback from the conversation, even though I'm doing most of the talking almost exclusively on a Sunday morning gathering or whatever, but then even like small groups and those things. So there was a purpose loss, but there were days where I was walking around the office literally by myself in a fairly big building, by myself, walking past offices of like all of my staff. No staff meetings in person, Zoom, all this stuff. So I found a purpose loss. But the thing that I really realized as we got into fall 2020, so like 8 months ago, is there was a fatigue that was beginning to happen where, and it wasn't, people weren't expressing it in the terms of pandemic, COVID, isolation, quarantine, any of those things.
Right.
And it was also while we were in this huge political discussion and coming up to voting and all these things. So I just saw it coming across as rage, heightened anger, things that would be a 3 were a 6, right? Things that were a 5 were an 8, and it was like, why are you so angry about this fairly small thing? And I boiled it down. This is just completely anecdotal and just my opinion, but I boiled it down to everybody was just walking in grief. Mm-hmm. And it was like this unknown grief, and they could not figure it out because everybody was walking through it. So it wasn't like you were walking through something different than anybody else, but really normal things in life were very difficult. And I think it was a huge loss of purpose and then a loss of community.
Yeah. And it was. And I think the community part of it is so, so important to all of us, even though we say, oh, I'm a loner.
Yeah, sure.
Or
nobody is.
No.
That's not actually a thing.
No.
You might prefer less.
Right.
But nobody is. I mean, that's a really destructive track in life to be
absolutely
an actual loner. So, yeah.
So,
I remember seeing you guys, I don't even remember what it was, but I like walked out of my house. So we live right.
Oh yeah.
And I remember seeing it and it was almost like, yeah. Do you remember this? Yeah. And I was like, hi.
Should I step forward?
Yeah. I know. Yes. It was really hard to figure out at times. It was like, I don't know where you're at. You don't know where I'm at. Like, what are your sensibilities? What are my sensibilities? And everybody's just like, and it almost profiled as like, this weird passive aggressive, like really real strange spaghetti like thing. And everybody was different and spouses were different. I mean, like,
what?
Yeah, it's a brand new thing that I just figured out. We could talk about it. Spouses
are different.
No, but I mean, there were turmoil in homes.
Yeah.
There was disagreement in homes. Like that was a really, I mean, like palpable.
So much togetherness.
Disagreement. So much. Yeah. If you thought your marriage was good or bad before, it was just going to be exposed. Yeah.
Well, and I remember saying to Jerry, and because we used to go out and walk every day.
Yeah, sure.
And the first week we started doing it, it was when everything had kind of closed down.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we allowed to be
Sure.
out here?
Right.
Why isn't there anyone
Sure.
else out here?
Sure.
It was such a weird feeling. And he was like, Kathleen, we're allowed to walk in our own community. I'm like, are you sure? Like,
Right.
is
I
there
don't
a
know.
thing? Like, are we going to get pulled over?
You're going to hear the police like, whoop, whoop.
You
Like,
need to get
yes,
in your house.
go home.
Yeah. So it was very, very strange for me. And then I started, because of being part of the Y, you start thinking about, okay, well, this is a great time for us to kind of refurbish everything.
Sure,
and we've
right.
got all kinds of times. And so I went back and actually took a look at why the Y started to begin with. Because a lot of people don't really know our history very well. They just think of us as a fitness facility.
Okay. And I want to not be a charlatan.
Okay.
I sat down and read the history of the Y last night.
So excited.
But here's the thing. I don't want to act like I'm a big, expert on the YMCA, but
you can answer a few questions.
I have a grid for it now. Yeah. Okay. And it's really cool.
It is cool.
It's really cool. Like I was like reading it and I'm going, more people should know this history. It's really, really cool.
That's why they started. When I first, 21 years ago, when I came to the Y, it was right around the 150th anniversary of the YMCA.
Okay. Yeah.
And they gave us a really cool book to all our staff, telling people about the history of the Y. And, who created basketball and what was their efforts in volleyball and how did they help develop our racquetball. And it was a lot about sports.
Racquetball, basketball, volleyball, softball?
Yeah, it was called sissy ball, I think, at the beginning.
Boy.
Something weird like that. I think that was softball. Or maybe that was volleyball.
I don't know. Right, yeah.
Yeah, and
all these things were developed around or in the Y. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's crazy.
But the original group, so industrial London, not a great place. Obviously, a lot of turmoil and stuff going on. And so a 22-year-old man, George Williams, decided he was a farmer. He was turned into a store worker. He decided that he saw all this trouble and so he joined 11 Friends, and they organized the first Young Men's Christian Association.
Yeah, like a Bible study.
Just a Bible study.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was the exact same thing that happened here in Tuscarawas County 101 years ago.
This Y.
Yeah, exact same type of deal. It started out as a men's Bible study here 101 years ago.
So 1920.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. 1919 because it was like December.
Oh, the
1919.
opposite way. Yeah. Okay.
So they formed that on the exact same date that the Y was formed. It's December 29th. And so it's just a really cool story to think that that's the reason. And all the rest of those activities came from that need of social expansion and doing more with each other and finding out more about each other and their talents and all that kind of great stuff. So the social need aspect really became the foundation of the YMCA and why we gather as we do. And now the Christian element of it just gets to be brought back in. Right. I love teaching classes, and at the end of my Silver Sneakers class and the end of my other classes that I'm helping fill in for, I always go back to that. Hey, you are loved by a much greater power, whatever it is that you believe, because obviously the Y is now developed into a for all standpoint. But just letting people know that we are here for you socially. This is the place that we want you to be. So going into that, starting with in London, then 40 years later, it comes across the seas.
Right. Boston.
And starts all over again in the exact same way.
Yeah.
So very cool.
It's really the model of church planting in a less formalized doctrinal theological way.
Right.
So it's heavy on the cultural social aspect, the societal aspect, which is really if you could sprinkle something into churches at times. And I think it's actually like the church that I pastor is not exceptional in things other than things that other churches are already doing. We tend to thrive in this area. And one of the things that I'm really careful of is creating culture where people can actually have that bond
Right.
Around the gospel, around Jesus, around Christianity, this commonality in life of the thing that we're pursuing, this greater thing. And I don't mean greater thing as in like existential, like just fuzzy, but I mean like God,
right?
Pursuing after, following the way that He wants us to live. But we often get so task oriented in churches that we forget to have fun. Mm-hmm. We forget to, you have churches are famous for having issues. And then not handling them. So it's because we forgot to just be a family.
Right.
And families have problems. But the bond of doing life together, should overcome those things. And so like you see the Y functioning, particularly like my grid is the Tuscarawas County YMCA. Like I grew up playing soccer there. I mean, like the
so cool.
field that we have like vacation Bible school in sometimes. Mm-hmm. Is where I grew up playing soccer. So like fun. First grade, second grade, Aaron Salapak, Archie Chenevy, we were playing soccer, and we were pretty good. And I just want to make sure.
They were the 5-year-old squad. That was really great.
Yeah. And then when we planted the Church of Carter's Orchard, it was June 21st, 2009, YMCA first service,
Yeah.
And here was the beauty over the course of that 3.5 years that we were at the Y, the YMCA employees embraced us as if they were my staff. I mean, it was mind blowing to me. I
just want more to do.
No, but it was like, they would call and they'd be like, hey, you got a call, or you got mail, or like, do you want to do this? Or, a hero of heroes, going back, and maybe she'll get a chance to see this, is Carol Jones. Like Carol Jones is one of my favorite people in our community. And she everything that we did, the Y just made it easier. And I thought it was going to be like, oh, this church is here and we got to move things around. It's like, that's how a lot of people would approach it. It's like this burden. Oh. And they just embrace us and then tried to actively, Keith, trying to actively fuel, like, we want you to be successful. Mm-hmm. We want to help you be successful. And then 10 years later, we're in this building renovation and we're back in the Y's helping us be successful again.
Yeah. So
I may have jumped forward too far.
You might have just a little bit.
It's an exciting, like really relational, community thing that we keep running into in a really positive way.
Right. And you kind of went into this just a little bit, but a lot of times churches start very, very small with a small group. So tell us a little bit about the church at Carter's Orchard and where did you start?
Around a kitchen table in Berlin, Ohio.
Yeah.
Just because
I love this story.
It's just 3 couples and 2 little girls. And we just said, hey, this is where we want to go. Wasn't reactionary to anything. We just wanted to do something that was, that we felt like the Lord was calling us to. It wasn't because we were mad at anybody or, this is what we want to do. And we kind of announced this thing. And then 2 of our friend couples just said, hey, we want to go do this with you. And I said, it isn't anything. Like, be careful that you're like, we're like, you're coming from a nice established, like really good church, right. And we're going to go, it's going to be us. Like, just look around. This is us.
Yeah.
So I always joke that we had 27 people, the first Sunday service that we had 27 people, but that was like friends and family. So the next week we grew from 27 to 11.
Yeah, I feel like that's the wrong way.
Yeah, it was. But then just over the course of several months, we started to pick up steam, and but again, at such a vulnerable time, the YMCA was just so incredibly helpful to us, and we would ask for something, and I would. The crazy thing is I was always like, you guys aren't charging us enough, or you guys aren't, you're doing too much for you're doing this. It's a terrible business model. But at the time, I don't know. But at the time I was just like, and then I've seen other churches start there since we've been there.
Absolutely.
A good friend of mine, Scott Bell, had a ministry there for a while. And, and so it's just cool to see the organization emphasizing the C part of your name and saying, hey, we're just going to help people get going. And right now we're in that same season.
Yeah.
Much different. I always say that it's like a highly resourced, financially resourced, human resourced church plant. But we're just because we're in this season of transition moving from.
Right. So tell our listeners why you're back at the Y.
Not for failure.
Before we go back to isolation.
Not because of failure. So this is really funny. Jason, I'm actually glad that we're doing a minute on this because
let's do a minute on that.
What's super funny to me is that I am a student of, church development and health and then, growth. We just believe that spiritual depth produces health and healthy things can't not grow, right? Like if you have a healthy tree, it's going to grow.
Right.
And so, and Carter's Orchard is the idea of an orchard, a group of fruit-bearing trees bearing good fruit together. So you don't have a one tree orchard.
So that's the reason for the name.
Yeah. So that's it.
All good.
So what's really cool is, or what's really funny is that right now the building that we were at for the last 7.5 or 8 years has a for lease sign on it. We have our Carter's Orchard signs out front. We don't meet there ever because we don't have that building anymore. We gave it up. We were leasing that building. Then we bought a building down by Valley View Veterinarian Clinic, which is on I-77 on Progress Street down in the industrial park.
Right.
So we're going to be right on the highway, which is cool.
It is cool.
5 acres, 22,000 square foot. Like God's just blessed us. But we're not there either. So our offices are there. I mean, and then our services are at the Y, just simply because it made a lot of financial sense.
Where in the world is
we were too big for our old building, right? Where do I have? And here's what's crazy: it's complete mixed messaging. Like, how do I even do this? And we're growing like crazy right now.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I love that. I mean, I think it's such an important part for us to be available for the community, no matter where you're located. But we are, I'll just say, when you gave us the opportunity to house you for another time, we were like, yes, absolutely.
That's so fun. Yeah.
Because we were super excited.
You can't believe, like, when we talked to you and Tiffany, I was sitting there and I was having a moment where I just thought we were coming in for to solve some logistical challenges. Because we're not the church that we were 12 years ago with 10 people. That was easy. It was like, use this room.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what do we do with 250, 300 people on a Sunday morning, whatever? How do we do that? And COVID and Tiffany's the executive director at the YMCA. She's like selling us on me. I'm like, wait a second. They want us to be here. Like this is not a problem it's not a challenge that you guys are just like, okay, we got to help this. No, it's like, she was like, we want you to be here.
Yeah. We actually don't want you to leave, but we'll talk about that later. No, I'm just
I feel like that ship has sailed, but we need to figure out how to do those things. Yeah. We need to figure out how to partner more closely in the future, but even if we're not there on Sunday morning.
So, kind of changing.
By the way, can I just say that our kids are all going to have, some of our teenagers are going to have a real, they're going to have a real letdown because they play racquetball, as we're, or things like that.
That's good.
So yeah,
you're not putting one of those courts in at your spot.
I wish.
So, I heard a pastor say this past week, he referred to relational DNA inside of each one of us, and meaning that we all need relationship with one another. And so going back to this isolation conversation, how do you think people can really start to bring themselves back into community? And because community is such a huge part of both what the YMCA does and what churches do. Yeah. And I know your church does because, I'm involved in that as well. It's just such a huge part. Yep. And so how do we get people to realize that it's time to step back out?
Okay. So this is a complex question because it involves a lot of sensibilities. And I think sensibility is such a huge word, right? Because it's not doctrinal. It's not, we all have our own, the way things should look, feel, safety, fear, all these different things. I tend to be incredibly cavalier with my own health and end of life. I couldn't care less about, I believe that I'm going to be in heaven forever with Jesus in the presence and glory of God when I die. And so if that's tomorrow or 40 years from now, great. And sometimes my eating habits reflect a desire to get there quicker. But so for me, I'm very just like okay with things, but that doesn't mean that that's right. In fact, it can be very flippant at times. And it's not sometimes honoring to like our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit and we should take care of them and these types of things. Right. So I'm confronted with that. But then on the other side, and then every gradient in between, and then on the other side. So when we're talking about, like a high fear or, just whatever. So on the other side of that, we have just a totally different sensibility. And then just from all different sides. So it's like a circle with tension and all these things. So the thing that would be easy to say is, hey, you just need to force yourself back into community. Like you just need to believe that it's okay. But I don't think that's totally reasonable or legitimate. I think it's lacks compassion. I think it lacks the Holy Spirit. I think that we have to be far more careful than that. So, but I think there's a truth that should wash over all of us, and it is the truth that we are created for relationship. First with the Lord, and then with each other, because that's the expression, the tangible expression, the physical picture of a spiritual reality that we exist in. And so I think a lot of people are existing in false positives right now, meaning I can do this by myself. I don't need to be back in church. I can watch a video and I can do this, or I don't need to be, because what it lacks is it actually, anybody can do anything for 6 months. Anybody can do anything for a year or 18 months. But we're going to have a lot of people who are struggling with high anxiety in a year. Yep. We're going to have people, and already are, and they're not identifying that a huge part of that is lack of community. But we're also going to have a lot of people struggling with deep depression, even more so than we do now, because they're not identifying that they need to actually be like, just speaking words is really important.
Right. Hearing
people speak, it pushes our selfishness down. And right now, when you stay isolated and you stay out of that, it's self-focus.
Right. And you don't have to take turns.
There's no one another.
By yourself.
There's no one another.
Right.
The Bible has like 50 plus one another's. Love one another, prefer one another above yourself. You cannot do it without someone else. And I don't mean just your spouse. Right. I mean like someone that you actually have to go out of your way to develop relationship with and walk in family with. Those things are essential and incredibly successful when it comes to when we talk about mental health.
Yep.
These things will all impact our mental health.
Yep.
And I hear a lot of people talking about mental health, but not talking about the spiritual side of mental health, which is not just this existential, again, like fuzzy thing, but like the thing that Jesus died for us to walk in, the thing that the Holy Spirit guides us in, all these things. Obviously, I have a very specific viewpoint on that, but it drives the things that we do.
It does. And I think that when we, two other points to kind of look at is that when you prefer to withdraw is when you probably need people more.
The most.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're choosing to withdraw, you are unwittingly identifying a gross need in your life. And you're literally missing that.
And so where do you go how would you counsel someone who is just really choosing to withdraw? Chances are they're probably not standing in your office if they keep continuing to withdraw. But you got to catch them prior to that.
It does happen that way. People express, like coming in doing a one-on-one, but expressing like, I'm not ready, or I'm doing well with this, and I've reached out to people and it's been challenging. I would just say this for anybody who's listening has a pastor. It's been challenging for pastors to know where the boundaries are. Do you want, I don't want to chase you.
Right.
And if you're making a life change, but it's highly confusing, it's like, are you not with us because you've just decided to go somewhere else, do something else, be on your own, just aren't ready to come back? I don't know.
There's so many boxes.
There's 20 things.
Yeah.
And so probably more. And so we want to honor the compassion side of that, but we also want to press on the Bible says that God chastens those he loves, which means that we have to have an active mechanism. If you're a parent, you don't rebuke or discipline your children, you're the worst parent ever. They have to be. So I'm not saying that we actively discipline or but you do have to go, hey, wait, come back here. Like the Bible encourages us to save people from disaster. And so knowing where that is difficult. but you're never going to be worse off in community, particularly with Christ followers or whatever your, theological bent is. You're always going to be better with that family than in isolation. Isolation's the worst for any type of mental illness, because it not only places you away from people, but it makes you entirely self-focused, and your focus is typically on the thing that you're struggling with. So it's just like anxiety. I got to stop being anxious. I got to stop being anxious. Well, what
and
do you focus on?
Temptations of all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Isolation is the dark side of every issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of kind of why I picked this topic for this time, not only from listening to that pastor, but also from, and I think a scripture reading that he was talking about the cord of three strands.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I listened to most of this, so I have a great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
good,
for sure.
Good. I loved his. I don't know if you got through the part where he was talking about Reggie Jackson, but that was kind of a funny. Yeah, that was a good story. I didn't know that.
It was great.
But he also made a couple. Not only that, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 12 reference, but he also made a reference from not the Bible, but went to the American Medical Association. And this pastor that I'm talking about is Pastor Dave Stone. He's part of the Southeast Christian Church in Kentucky, which you're familiar with because you have some...
Spent a little time there. Got a wife there.
Got a wife in Kentucky.
Right. Yeah.
And so he made the statement that the Journal of American Medical Association found that when it comes to fighting the common cold, that those with strong emotional connections did 4 times better than those who were isolated.
Yeah, that's great.
In recovery. And so that's taking that from a medical point of view. But when we look at it from a spiritual point of view, really, we want to do individual work and read the Bible, but interpretation takes people to talk to. Yeah. And to listen to and to be able to hear. So I actually loved, and when he first started reading that chapter from the Bible, it just reminded me of a wedding. I feel like, is this one of these wedding ones I feel like that you hear a lot about, because 2 are better than 1, because, and gives all those reasons why.
The third strand throws off the wedding analogy.
Yeah. And then you get to the third strand and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
It's a problem usually.
But it's so true.
No, it's exactly on.
That 3 cord strand is really important. And I believe a couple of years ago, I heard you have a sermon on this particular,
of course. For sure,
on this particular topic as well. So
one of the things that's really interesting, if you listen to podcasts or you listen to the radio or you listen to any type of media right now, what you're finding is that you're seeing a lot of commercials for online counseling, online counseling services, which is really cool. So that's a good thing to have. The problem is that anytime that I counsel someone, the foolproof method of counseling is counseling plus community, or community plus counseling. So a lot of people will invest themselves in a community, but never really actively hear what the community is saying, just kind of exist within the community. I say that all the time. I say that at our own church all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're really a part of this, but you don't see like a press for like really hearing and changing. It's just like, we like this group. It's a safe group. And there's value to that.
Right.
It's absolutely valuable. And then you'll have people who don't want to commit to being a part of a church, but they want me or someone to speak into that, or a counselor, or my brother's a psychologist. He does this all day long. And so we'll speak into that. The problem is when those 2 things exist, they can't be mutually exclusive. So when they exist in exclusivity, they aren't as powerful and as successful as when they're partnered together. So if you can get somebody to be in a small group in a church and participate on Sunday mornings and be in the flow and the conversation of the church, and then when they have issues or challenges, they press in and say, hey, can you also speak into this?
Right.
Then that gets really, really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
And most people exist in one or the other. When I have issues, I will ask for help, or I'm just going to exist in this. And I can't tell you how many times, even people will have problems and I'll find out like way late. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why didn't you share this with us? Like, we could have surrounded you. And they're like people that are in our church or, whatever. And there's all kinds of reasons, embarrassment, fear, humiliation, and, whatever. So I get it. But when you see people operating in that, and I try to model that, like I think people think that I'm just flippant and like, just like loose with my words on Sunday morning or whatever. I'm trying to model vulnerability. Like, hey, I'm with you. We're all struggling through this together.
Right.
I have some level of authority to speak and to teach, but in no way am I like, I got it all figured out. And if you have an issue, come to me.
Right.
There are people in our community that I am pressing into. Here's what's going on. This is what I'm struggling with. And sometimes it's different because your issue matches up with somebody else's expertise. Yeah. The beauty of community, right?
And then you have people that are pressing into you as well.
Yeah, sure, all the time. Yeah,
all the time, which is great. And I love to hear those stories too. Just knowing that you're a community, you have a community that surrounds you as well, that is pressing in from all directions. The biggest goal of our churches should not be to compete with each other for people. It should be embracing the idea that not everyone speaks the same sensibility, cultural language, even in the same community. Right.
And it's okay for, like we're at Rob Coburn's church, recording right now in their studios at the Summit. And Rob, can I just do that? So Rob and I had a really close, Rob and I had a really close friend. Actually, it was Rob's brother-in-law.
Okay.
Passed away last summer during COVID. And I did the funeral. It was Mark Farron. A lot of people know Mark in our community.
Big Y supporter over.
Absolutely.
Another
big
connection.
Supporter of everything in the community. Like amazing guy.
Lots of dots.
And, heartbreaking. I mean, just heart-wrenching. Okay. So the thing that I want to tell you about Rob is, like, I told him this. I said, that was one of the most amazing pastoring things that I've seen, because he didn't try to like get 50% of the share of like speaking, or I had to like almost like, come on, do this with us, or I mean, like, I want you to be like, say something during the funeral. But Rob just like got busy taking care of all the logistics, making sure that everything could happen. And then just serving me, as I was getting ready to speak the funeral. And that's what healthy multiple church communities should look like.
Right.
Like rooting for each other for the common cause of doing what's good and godly for the community. And I think that the Y helps us do a lot of those things. And I think a lot more churches should understand what the Y is doing, because it is a huge tool in our community to be able to do these things.
And we're excited to be part of that, to be part of your church for as long as we get to keep you this year.
Right.
So let our listeners know, what does services look like on Sunday? How can they get to you? Do they walk through the front door? Do they need their membership card? Do they have to scan? No. So none of that. Take us through Sunday morning.
Yeah. If Carter's has a flaw, it's like we're too laid back, right? but we're not. I mean, we know what's going on, but. So right now we're still getting our feet under us with like signage and just like greeting and all these different things, because we're in the season. And as soon as we figure it out, we're going to move to another building. It's funny. It's like, we'll get this all figured out, get it over.
Well, you went from one door to two dours now. So do you have people coming in from both directions?
Yeah. We have greeters at both doors, but no, so we just have one service at 10 o'clock. We have childcare for everybody under fifth grade.
Okay.
A lot of the older kids will come in, sing, with us. Yeah. So we have full band right now in the gym, a little bit less than normal because the gym is not an acoustical wonderland. It's a bit challenging, but yeah. And then I always say, hey, we're singing together and teaching and learning. Awesome. And that's what we do. And if you're looking for anything else, then we're probably not your show, cause it's like, that's just what we do. And
what time?
And what's funny about that? We like to do relational things on Sunday morning. We like to lay hands on people and pray for them. And then that's been a challenge. Like, but there was a few weeks ago we were like, hey, we're just doing this. So we just, it's finally. So 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And then, we have.
Another thing I always like, and when we first got started with the church, I remember you saying, come 15 minutes early, talk to people. Yeah. So don't feel like you have to come right at 10 o'clock. Come a little bit early.
No, for sure.
They love to be able to chat, and you'll get to see the kids' rooms and that kind of stuff.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
So when we bought the new building, we're jumping in size in facility quite a bit.
Right.
And somebody came up to me and they said, I like to be with people. I'm just super relational. I'm not even trying. It's just baseline. And so I'm always out just talking to people because I always feel like my conversation sermon starts with just seeing people, and then we get together and we teach.
Right.
And so like that's hugely important for me. It's even maybe a bit selfish. Like it puts some energy or some fuel in my tank. Okay, so somebody came up to me months ago and they said, so when we move to the new building, are you going to be like the guy who's like in his office and then just comes out? And I started laughing
from backstage.
Sure, right. Like some prima donna, like
curtain rises.
Celebrity. Right. No, I mean that does sound great, but no. I was just started laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this because I feel like I have to. Like it's some church growth thing. It's like, no, we want to. Like this is what we do. Like this is So no, I don't even know what that. I would be ADHD in my office, like. Freaking out,
waiting for he's in the green room.
Right. What are you talking about? Yeah. So it was funny. Yeah. So
that would be weird to think that you would do that.
I'm not even saying it's wrong. It probably works for some guys, but I got it. My stuff starts
with on a top hat and cane. Just jazz your way out there.
And then somebody would have a hook and just pull at the
Yeah. Oh, so okay, so great. So you, how long do you think you'll be around the Y? Just for people who are not ready to just jump right in on Sunday.
Well, we're hoping December is our goal to be in our new building. Renovation starts like this week.
But we absolutely don't want you to wait. We want you to come over if you're looking for a community to get involved in. Obviously,
a lot of young couples coming in right now. It's really cool.
A lot of great churches, including the Summit. The Y is also very deeply connected with Park Christian Church in the Denison area. So lots of different.
By the way,
different.
Great friend of mine.
Oh yeah, we have all kinds of friends.
Scott Cayley.
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that's a great church.
Fun. And then just we love seeing pastors coming in and out of the Y. Yeah. There's quite a few. It's always exciting because we feel like, we want you guys to balance us as well, to keep us in our Christian heritage and really make sure that we're traveling down the right path as well. I appreciate you coming today. I know that
this is fun. Are we done already?
Yeah. It's already over. So
I thought a funny thing right then ran through my mind, and I'm restraining through a little maturity. Was just when you said we're done, I was just going to grab my iPod, just walk out,
drop the mic.
But I'll wait for you to finish.
Josh would prefer you not drop the microphone. For those of you who always wonder who Josh is, he's behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
and does a great job. Josh is also part of our marketing team at the Y. We have a committee that helps us out there. And so he is a great influencer for us as well. I want to let you know that obviously the Y is open to all. Our website is tuscymca.org, and the website at Carter's Orchard.
CartersOrchard.com.
CartersOrchard.com. You can also get a link to their church on ours as well on our website. So if you're looking for some information about them or want to ask some questions, please give them a call. They will be a great resource for you to come out of isolation and to start to find family. Because, maybe you don't, I don't know. Sometimes family is hard to find in any situation, even if you come from a really large family. Just finding people that can really connect with you and really bring you back into community with a really great resource of not only the Y, but also churches in your area. So I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So from all of us at the Who, What, When, Where, and the Y podcast, have a great day, and thanks for listening.